Today, we're taking a look at a source you shared. It's a really handy list of vocabulary focused on history and heritage.
hmm
It seems like it was put together for people studying for tests, like IELTS, maybe.
Yeah, that seems right. But honestly, the words themselves are useful for anyone.
Definitely. Anyone wanting to talk about the past, culture, all that stuff with a bit more precision.
Exactly. And focusing on a specific list like this is, well, it's a great way to really get to grips with the core ideas in this field. It builds that precise understanding.
Right. So that's what we'll do today. We're going to go through this list word by word, look at the definitions they've provided in the source, and hear the example sentences. Okay, let's jump in. The first word on the list is ancestry.
Right. Ancestry. The source defines this one as one's family or ethnic descent. Pretty fundamental.
It really is. It points to where you come from, biologically, geographically.
Your roots, basically.
Yeah. And the examples they give are she was proud of her Native American ancestry. That's a clear one.
Mm-hmm.
And also, understanding your ancestry can give you insight into your family's past.
Makes sense. It connects you back through time.
Okay, the next word is ancient.
Ancient. This refers to a period in history typically characterized by its great age.
So really, really old.
Yeah, exactly. Often used to describe civilizations, cultures, or artifacts from a distant past.
Right. Like in the example, the ancient city of Rome is renowned for its rich history and architectural marvels.
Classic example.
Or the archaeologists discovered an ancient burial site dating back thousands of years. You hear ancient used a lot with archaeology.
Definitely. It signals that deep past.
Moving on. The next one is antiquity. Similar vibe, maybe.
A bit similar, yeah, but more specific. The definition is a period of history before the Middle Ages, typically regarded as a time of great cultural achievement, particularly in Greece and Rome.
Ah, okay. So it often points specifically to that Greco-Roman period.
That's often the focus, yeah.
Yeah.
Though it can be used a bit more broadly sometimes.
The examples help clarify. The Parthenon in Athens is a remnant of Greek antiquity.
Mm-hmm. Instantly recognizable.
And he is an historian specializing in Roman antiquity, so it specifies that historical period. The next term on the list is, well, we just mentioned it, archaeology.
Right. And the definition provided is the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites and the analysis of artifacts and other physical remains.
So it's the digging and the studying of what's dug up.
Pretty much. It's how we learn about the past when there aren't written records, or even alongside written records.
Archaeology offers us a window into the civilizations of the antiquity. Connects back nicely.
It does.
And the archaeology professor is leading a dig site in Egypt this summer. A very practical application.
Yeah, fieldwork is key.
Up next, we have the things archaeologists often find, artifacts.
Or artifacts, depending on where you are.
True. Spelled differently here. The definition is objects made by humans, typically with cultural or historical significance, often found in archaeological excavations.
So the human-made stuff they uncover, tools, pottery, jewelry.
Right. Things that tell a story about how people lived. The examples are, the museum displayed a vast collection of artifacts ranging from ancient pottery to medieval weaponry.
Shows the range.
And archaeologists unearthed several well-preserved artifacts shedding light on the daily lives of ancient civilizations. That shedding light part is crucial. Continuing with the list.
Chronicle.
Chronicle. This is defined as a factual written account of important or historical events in the order of their occurrence.
So like a record, a history written down as it happened or shortly after. It implies a sequential, factual telling.
Like in the examples, the book chronicles the events leading up to the French Revolution, a narrative timeline.
Or her diary served as a poignant chronicle of her life during the war.
Yeah.
It can be personal, too.
Yes, as long as it's recording events over time.
The next word is a big one. Civilization.
The source defines it as the stage of human social development and organization which is considered most advanced.
That most advanced bit sounds potentially tricky.
It can be, yeah. It's a term with a lot of history itself and debates about what constitutes advanced, but generally it points to complex societies, cities, government, writing, that sort of thing.
Okay. The examples. Ancient Greece is renowned for its contributions to Western civilization.
A very common usage.
And some civilizations developed complex writing systems, whilst others relied on oral tradition, acknowledging different paths.
Exactly.
Next up is colony. Right. This is defined as a country or area under the full or partial political control of another country and occupied by settlers from that country.
So linked to empires and expansion usually.
Very often, yes.
Yeah.
It applies control from elsewhere and settlement.
Examples given. Australia started as a British colony in the 18th century.
Straightforward historical fact.
And the American 13 colonies declared independence from Britain on July 4th, 1776. Which leads nicely into other concepts later.
It does. Sets the stage.
Moving through the list. Conservation.
Conservation. Defined as the protection, preservation, and management of natural resources, cultural heritage, or artifacts to ensure their sustainability and longevity for future generations.
So it's about active protection and management, keeping things safe for the future.
Yeah, sustainability and longevity are key parts of that definition. It's not just stopping decay, it's managing for the long term.
The national park implemented strict conservation measures to protect endangered species and fragile ecosystems. That's the natural resources side. And the museum's conservation team worked tirelessly to restore the deteriorating paintings to their original glory. That's the cultural heritage artifact side.
Shows the breadth of the term.
The next word is culture, another huge one.
Absolutely. The definition here is the customs, arts, social institutions, and achievements of a particular nation, people, or other social group.
It's everything, almost. The way a group lives, thinks, creates.
It's very broad, yeah. Shared beliefs, values, practices, arts, all of it.
Examples. Japanese culture is celebrated during the annual festival in the city's public park.
A public expression of culture.
And she is very interested in learning about indigenous culture, highlighting the culture of specific groups.
Yes.
And then related to that, cultural exchange.
It makes sense to follow culture with this one. It's defined as the mutual sharing, interaction, and exchange of ideas, traditions, customs, beliefs, art, and other aspects of culture between different societies, groups, or individuals.
So it's about the interaction between cultures, the sharing part.
Mutual sharing, ideally.
Yeah.
Learning from each other.
The examples. The university organized a cultural exchange program where students from various countries could share their customs and traditions with each other.
A common way it happens.
And through cultural exchange initiatives, the two nations fostered a deeper understanding and appreciation of each other's heritage and values. Shows the positive potential outcome.
Yeah, fostering understanding is often the goal.
Next on the list, democracy. Moving into government types now.
Right. Defined as a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives.
Government by the people, essentially.
In theory, yes. Through elections, usually.
Examples. The country transitioned towards democracy after years of dictatorship.
A common narrative of political change.
And in a democracy, every vote matters. The ideal principle behind it. Let's look at the next word. Descendants. We touched on ancestry earlier. This feels related.
It is. They are a person, plant, or animal that is descended from a particular ancestor.
So, if ancestry is looking back, descendants are looking forward from an ancestor.
Exactly. The generations that follow.
We are all descendants of our biological parents. Simple, direct example.
Yeah.
And she discovered her family's rich history while tracing back her line of descendants. Oh, wait, that seems... Shouldn't it be tracing ancestors? Or tracing the line of descendants from an ancestor?
Yeah, the phrasing there in the source example is a little ambiguous. Usually you trace your ancestors back, or you trace the line of descent down to current descendants. Perhaps they meant tracing the different branches of descendants from a known ancestor.
Okay, let's assume that's the intention. Moving on. Related to colony, we have empire.
Right. Defined as an extensive group of states or countries ruled over by a single monarch, an oligarchy, or a sovereign state.
So, large political units controlling diverse territories.
That's the core idea. Centralized rule over a wide area.
Examples. The Roman Empire was an important part of world history. Can't argue with that.
Nope. Foundational.
And at its height, the British Empire was the largest empire in history. Another major example.
Indeed.
Here's a core word for the whole topic. Heritage.
Ah, yes. Very central. The definition is valued objects and qualities such as historic buildings and cultural traditions that have been passed down from previous generations.
So it's what we inherit from the past, but specifically the parts we value.
That valued aspect is important, yes. It's not just everything from the past, but what we choose to preserve and identify with.
The city's rich heritage is reflected in its historic architecture.
Yeah.
Tangible heritage. And the festival celebrates the diverse cultural heritage of the local community. Intangible heritage like traditions.
Good distinction. It covers both.
following colony and empire, logically, we have independence.
Makes sense. It's the fact or state of being independent, especially as the freedom from being governed or ruled by another country.
Self-governance, freedom from external control.
Pretty much sums it up.
Examples. India gained independence from Britain in 1947, a pivotal moment.
Huge historical event.
And the American Revolution was fought to achieve independence from England. Connects back to the colony example earlier.
Exactly. Cause and effect.
Another key term is legacy.
Legacy, defined as anything handed down from the past, as from an ancestor or predecessor.
This feels broader than heritage, maybe. Not just valued things, but anything passed down.
It can be broader, yeah. It often refers to the impact or influence someone or something leaves behind, good or bad.
Yeah.
It's the long-term consequence.
Okay. Examples. Martin Luther King Jr. left a profound legacy of promoting civil rights and racial equality. A positive, impactful legacy.
Absolutely.
And the legacy of ancient Rome can be seen in modern Western societies, thinking about law, language, architecture.
Yeah, all those lasting influences.
Similar to ancestry and descendants.
Lineage.
Lineage. The definition is direct descent from an ancestor, ancestry, or pedigree.
So how's it different from ancestry? It sounds very close. Lineage sometimes implies a more documented or traceable line, like a formal family tree or a pedigree for animals. It often emphasizes the directness of the line.
Ah, okay. Like in the examples. She traced her lineage back to the Mayflower, suggests specific records.
Possibly, yeah.
And the purebred dog had an impressive lineage of champion show dogs. Definitely implies a recorded pedigree there.
Right, more formal tracking.
Let's look at migration.
Migration, the act of moving from one region or country to live in another.
Movement of people to live somewhere else seems straightforward.
It is, but the reasons and impacts can be incredibly complex.
True. The examples touch on that. The Great Migration saw millions of African Americans move from the rural southern United States to the urban Northeast, Midwest, and West. A major internal migration.
Huge demographic shift.
And her family's migration story is a tale of resilience and strength, highlighting the human experience within it.
Yes, the personal side of these large movements.
Going back to forms of rule, monarch.
Monarch, a sovereign head of state, especially a king, queen, or emperor.
The single ruler, often hereditary.
Historically, yes, though the power varies greatly today in constitutional monarchies.
Examples. The monarch's coronation ceremony was held in the cathedral, a ceremonial aspect, and the reign of the current monarch has lasted 4 decades, referring to the duration of rule.
Simple factual statement.
Something built to remember the past. Monument.
Monument, defined as a statue, building, or other structure erected to commemorate a famous or notable person or event.
So a physical structure for commemoration, remembering something specific.
Exactly, making memory concrete.
The Washington Monument is an iconic feature of the Washington, D.C. skyline. Very famous example.
Iconic, yeah.
And the monument commemorates the victims of the war, highlighting the purpose commemoration.
That's key.
Where you might see monuments and artifacts.
Museum.
Right. A building in which objects of historical, scientific, artistic, or cultural interest are stored and exhibited. The place we go to see all this stuff collected together.
Essentially, yes. Institutions for preservation and public display.
Examples. The Louvre Museum in Paris is home to the infamous painting Mona Lisa, world-famous example.
Can't get much more famous.
And the local museum offers interactive exhibits for children to learn about history, showing their educational role, too.
Yeah, engaging the public is crucial.
The next word describes someone who is first. Pioneer.
Pioneer, a person who is among the first to explore or settle a new country or area.
The ones who go first into new territory.
Geographically, yes, but the term's also used more broadly.
Ah, like in the examples. The Wright brothers were pioneers in aviation, first in a new field.
Exactly. Or she is considered a pioneer in cancer research, breaking new ground scientifically.
So it's about being first, whether settling land or developing ideas.
That's the core meaning.
Similar to conservation, but often applied more broadly, preservation.
Preservation. The action of preserving something, particularly relating to historic buildings, artifacts, landscapes, or cultures.
How does it differ from conservation, then? They sound very similar.
They're very close and often used interchangeably. Sometimes preservation is seen as more focused on maintaining the existing state, stopping decay, while conservation might imply more active management or restoration, but the line is blurry.
Okay, the examples. The preservation of historic sites is important in maintaining a connection to the past.
Focus on keeping the sites intact.
And many countries have laws promoting the preservation of endangered species.
Applying it to nature as well.
Yes, it crosses over.
An object from the past. Relic.
Relic. Defined as an object surviving from an earlier time, especially one of historical interest.
How's that different from an artifact?
Good question. A relic often implies something quite old, perhaps rare, maybe venerated or seen as particularly significant. An artifact is maybe a more general term for any human-made object from the past. A relic often has a stronger connotation of survival against the odds or special significance.
Okay, that helps. Examples. The museum displayed a relic from the American Civil War. Suggests an object with a strong connection to that event.
And the religious relic is said to possess healing powers. A term for big change. Revolution.
Revolution. A forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system.
So fundamental, often violent upheaval.
That forcible overthrow and new system are key elements. It's radical change.
Examples. The French Revolution is a critical period in European history. Major historical turning point.
Absolutely.
And the revolution motivated people to fight for their rights, highlighting the impetus for change.
Yes, the driving force behind it.
Something passed down. Tradition.
Tradition. The transmission of customs or beliefs from generation to generation, or the fact of being passed on in this way.
The things we do because they've been done before in our family or community.
Pretty much. Repeated practices, beliefs, passed down over time.
The annual holiday parade is a long-standing tradition in our town, a community tradition. And breaking the wishbone is a common tradition following Thanksgiving dinners, a smaller, more specific family or cultural tradition.
Good examples of different scales.
Settlement.
Settlement. A place, typically one which has previously been uninhabited, where people establish a community.
So the initial place where a group sets up shop, basically.
Establishes a community, yes, often in a new area for them.
Examples. The settlers established a new settlement near the river.
Basic scenario.
And the Pilgrims formed the Plymouth settlement in 1620. Specific historical example.
Right.
And finally, the last word on this list, tribute.
Tribute. Defined as an act, statement, or gift that is intended to show gratitude, respect, or admiration, often in relation to a significant historical event or person.
So it's an act of showing respect or honor, often publicly.
Exactly.
They raised a statue as a tribute to the war veterans. The statue is the tribute.
Clear connection.
And the concert was held as a tribute to the late musician. The performance is the tribute.
Shows it can be an act or event, not just an object.
Wow, that's the end of the list provided in the source. We made it through all 29.
So we did. Quite a journey through key historical and cultural concepts.
So we've looked at each word, the definition given, and the examples. Hopefully, having these terms laid out clearly helps you, the listener, understand and talk about history and heritage topics a bit more effectively.
Absolutely. And, looking at them all together, from ancestry and lineage, tracing back our roots, through the rise of settlements, civilizations, empires, the exchanges, and sometimes conflicts like revolutions, and then how we remember it all through traditions, heritage, monuments, museums, conservation efforts, right up to paying tribute.
It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It does. It really makes you think about how interconnected it all is, how the past, through culture and legacy, genuinely shapes who we are now and what we consciously or unconsciously pass on.
That's a great way to put it. The past isn't just past. It's actively present in all these ways, something to think about as you encounter these ideas and these words out in the world.
Definitely.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into history and heritage vocabulary.